So I wanted to first introduce myself. My name is Nicole, and I study at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, and I am studying in second language studies, and I do have a musical background. I have a Bachelor of Music degree in vocal performance, and then I was like, let me do second language studies. So now I am a master's student in second language studies at the University of Hawaii. And this is my current study that I'm doing for my scholarly paper. And the whole point is, let's look at the effect of pronunciation or my own findings from singing in a foreign language and what happens to pronunciation and how authentic a sound can I get it through singing. So I'm doing a lot more research with this since it is part of my scholarly paper. I will be honest in saying that if I were just singing this on my own, maybe I wouldn't go into so much effort or detail. But for this, I want to get it to the most authentic sound I can get it. So we're first going to talk about what is Cebuano. What is the Cebuano language? So I'm going to first talk about what the information that I retrieved. So first of all, and I'll put the sources where I got all this information from. But first of all, Cebuano is a language in the Philippines. 20 million people speak it, and it's spoken mostly in the middle of the Philippines. And it's like right next to, kind of like Cebuano and Tagalog are spoken in that same area. And then Cebuano is spoken in the smaller islands surrounding it in the south. So it actually originated from Cebu. So this is where Cebuano is spoken in the standardized form. However, there are different Visayan languages outside of that in the Visayan area, which is why this language is also called Visayan or Bisayan. And by the native speakers of it, they call it Binisaya. So there's a lot of variations, but you cannot get it confused because there are different dialects and completely other languages in Visayan. So the Visayan languages that you would find are Banton or Banton, Cebuan, Central, then Cebuano, then South, then West. So these are the different Visayan languages you can find, and there are over 36 Visayan dialects. So what's interesting though is that the native speakers of the language call it Binisaya, but they believe that Binisaya is actually separated from Cebuano. However, they're mutually intelligible. So that's another question for another time. That's very much not part of my study, but that is definitely a question to research, especially with like sociolinguistics. And the question, is it a dialect? Is it a language? So that's a good one to look up. What I found was when looking at the specific orthographies of the language, I noticed that there are, well, we'll go over the vowels and things like that, but what I really found interesting was how they write their letters. From what I read, they're not very consistent with their writing system. So spelling might be off, or they might use an A instead of a U at certain times. And then also what I found interesting was the hyphen. So there are hyphens used within the music, such as within my music that I read. And I was a little confused of, well, why are they putting these hyphens here? Is it part of the word? Like, why is it written? And their orthography system is very much phonetic. So it's in a way to help the speaker say the word, which is very nice. But I was a little confused about that. So we're going to go over a little bit of that. The E vowel can be written as an E or as an I. So if you're looking at the writing system, even if it's pronounced as E, it might be written as either an E or an I. So you're never sure. I mean, I guess if you know these rules, then maybe it makes it easier. But coming from somebody who didn't know how to read their orthography, I was very much like, well, it's written this way, so why is it written this way? And how am I supposed to pronounce this? And then the other one is that the U sound, the U vowel, is represented as U or O. So it'll be written as a U or an O. The antepenultimate vowel may be sporadically changed to an A. Apathetic vowel will be added if two consonants precede Y or W. So how did this affect my pronunciation? And I think that's the next question. I will have to look over the music again and see like, how did this change my pronunciation, or how can I make it better now that I know these kinds of things? And as I said earlier, hyphens are used inconsistently in situations. So in one place, they can be inconsistent, and then they also represent a glottal stop. And I think we could look over some examples that might help a lot, especially in the music that I have. So I'm going to be looking over Rosas Pandan, which is the piece that I had been studying. And I'm going to look at some examples to talk about it. And I will show it on the screen with some screenshots from my music. So what's interesting here is that in my music, it does not reflect that there would be a glottal stop, because with each hyphen, most of them, it is very inconsistent. There's a hyphen between a lot of these words. There's one that I sing, which is awit nga labing kara angaga bosa. There's a hyphen between awit and then labing, which I don't understand why there would be a glottal stop between those. Like, you understand glottal stops would be between two vowels, such as kara an, because there's one part where I say awinga labing kara angaga bosa. There's kara an. So you would understand that, or, be like, oh, there's supposed to be a glottal stop there. However, they have them in different areas as well. So another example, atong, kabuk. But it's interesting as well because on line 8, and I'll show this on the video, on line 8, they say garbo, which they put a hyphen, sa, a, tong, ka, bu, and then the K is just by itself. So kabuk iran, which we kind of just put kabukiran, like we just didn't even respect. I don't think any of us sang it completely right. And also when you're singing, as we've already discussed, like, you have to acknowledge that there is going to be like a little bit of change to the singing to fit the song and the rhythm. Even if you know what it actually is, we're not going to actually sing it that way. And a lot of these, it's like that. Usapsi, dodong, dikadong, digadong, digadong. And they put the hyphens with D. So in line 12, they have dikadong, dikadong, dikadong. And within the D, ka, there's a hyphen, and then between ka, dong, there's also a hyphen. I don't really understand their purpose in this. I guess maybe some sort of separation, because in line 9, it says, ay. So, yeah, ayase kong, that's the one part where we say, ayaso kong palitao, manindo boksayo. So, I don't understand why there's a specific hyphen there. But I guess it was written, and it doesn't explain here either. I will say I really like that they do give a bit of guidelines, and they do write the E's in here when it's pronounced as an sound. So if you look at the music, I will also put this on the screen. So they actually write some of these guidelines to help us out for pronunciation. So they say like the U in up or cut. So the upside down carrot sign. So the or the A sound, I should not say the A sound will be the as in up or cut. Then the E, when actually it is written as an E, is going to be pronounced as so end, bed. In the I, it's going to be pronounced as E. So we have machine, marine. The O is supposed to be pronounced as an O. It's the pure O sound, old and sold. And oo is going to be pronounced like ooh. So we have rude and moon. So yeah, so and then if we go over the consonants, they have some similar consonants. So they have B, D, G, H, K, L, M, N, P, R, S, T, W. The G is always pronounced hard and is as in good and never like general. So it's never pronounced as the specific sound, which I'll put on the screen as well. S never takes on a Z sound as it does in English. So it's always going to be the S. For the T, it's a lighter and gentler dental. So that was another thing that I noticed, is that sometimes it was hard for many of us to remember to not sing the hard T. We always want to sing a dental T. Or we always want to sing a hard T, but we need to sing the dental T, which is what he kept enforcing us, because it's not only in this language, but it was also in many of our other languages, such as in Spanish. And what was interesting about that is that he kept reflecting on the fact that we had some other speakers from the Philippines, such as people who could speak in Ilocano and in Tagalog. And he would refer to them and be like, see, so it's a dental T, so we should sing more like they do in Tagalog or Ilocano. And that's close pronunciation with Cebuano, which is what the impression I got from it. I am still researching that. I still have not found all of the information on that, so I'm still looking up those kinds of things. So then the next step, I think, is to go over the Hawaiian. So I found some new information on that as well. So I just found some really interesting information, which will help out a lot for people who have trouble in pronouncing in Hawaiian. So it first says that it says vowel length, accent, and Hawaiian songs. This is from a reanalysis of the Hawaiian vowel system. It says the confusion between length and accent continued well into the present century. In one grammar, the writer introduced the notion of softness in connection with vowel length, and also implied that songs could show the authentic pronunciation of a questionable word. As a general rule in classifying vowels, long or short, it would appear that all accentuated vowels in a word are long, and the unaccentuated, short. Prolonging the sound of a vowel softens the sound of a word in the Hawaiian language. If there be any doubt as to the accentuation of a vowel in Hawaii, or as to whether it be long or short, the point can always be determined by putting the word into a Hawaiian poetical phrase or song. This actually continues on into the next page, and I actually love this quote. Macrons, indicative of long vowels in stress, are marked except in positions in which the vowels are commonly sung short. This is a singer's privilege if the line is too long for the music. So this is fairly common with singers, which I've noticed in myself even, where there is this singer's privilege. So this is really interesting. I would suggest anyone who would like to read this. It's called A Reanalysis of the Hawaiian Vowel System. It's really interesting. So as I'm reading this, I'm going over the questions that I had about it, which one of them was, there was a phrase where there was lei, L-E-I, and then L-E, and that would be a diphthong. What's interesting is when they talk about the diphthongs, they say that it's a troublesome concept because it's hard to define, and that so that it covers all examples and makes the important distinction between form and function. In this, they actually talk about the compound sound, and he said, until lately, the most intelligent Hawaiians would never admit that two vowels ever coalesced so far as to make but one sound. And in a Hawaiian's ear, both vowels and a diphthong are distinctly and separately heard. But since some of the scholars in the seminary have gotten more perfectly the idea of what is intended by the term diphthong, by a little attention to the Greek and English languages, they are not only ready to admit that there are diphthongs in their language, but that there are a great many of them. So what it actually says about the diphthong is that they say these vowel clusters are short, as the glide from one vowel to the next is performed quickly. In the remaining vowel combinations, other than the vowel clusters listed above, the glide from one vowel to the next is performed more slowly. Another phonetic difference of the two types is that the stress on the vowel clusters is always on the first member, depending on the syllable count. And the vowel clusters that they have identified have been, so they're now distinguishing between a vowel cluster and a diphthong. So the vowel cluster consists of a vowel followed by a higher vowel. So A plus, so the A sounds so ah, plus E, O, I, U. So you have I, ow, I, ow, ow, E plus the E or U, so as in lay, which we talked about, because we talk a lot about the word lay, lay. So this would actually be considered a vowel cluster. And they are supposed to be short and they glide from one vowel to the next. So this would be different considering the idea of a diphthong. So in the Hawaiian language, they do not consider them diphthongs at all. They consider them vowel clusters instead. So that is great information now, especially with considering, because we had the word le, so I guess that would be le, and then there's lay, lay, so there's that difference. What's interesting too is that they don't recognize the difference, or they're recognizing the difference between a diphthong and a vowel cluster, but they believe that in a diphthong there is no differentiation between the first vowel and the second vowel, so it's all just together, as in I, compared with the Hawaiian, which would be considered a vowel cluster, but each vowel is still being prominently pronounced and distinguished from each other. Actually, I think I'm going to stop it there, since I'm kind of out of time, and I need to do a bit more research on the Hawaiian. What I also found interesting, I was speaking to one of my friends who is learning Hawaiian and who speaks it on a regular basis, that when I was asking about the W versus V sound, he was saying that It depends on what part of Hawaii you're in. So that's more of a variation and less of this is how it's pronounced at this point and this is how it's pronounced at this point. So another interesting find. And yeah, I will continue on in this research to help me pronounce in Hawaiian and look more into Cebuano even. I'm still trying to figure out. I need to reach out to some professors in the Philippine Studies department, and I want to ask them about this. I did find some other information about Cebuano in relation to other languages, but it was not with other Filipino languages. So, I'll continue on with this later. Okay, bye!